Good morning, and thank you for joining me. The chances for cold and wintry weather are the primary focus of our discussion in this morning's video. We have a storm system developing right ahead of us that we need to analyze carefully, as it is expected to bring opportunities for winter weather a little farther south than the last few storms we have been tracking. So, we will begin with the southern plains first, and then we will discuss the upper plains. Following that, we will turn our attention to the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, and the northeast. I will include timestamps in the description to separate each topic for you. After we cover that immediate time frame, we will look deeper into next week and further into the month of December. We will examine the overall weather pattern in detail, which is something I always enjoy doing because, as many of you know, I truly love discussing winter weather. I wish you a very pleasant Wednesday morning. I hope you all are doing well today. If you are new here, I would be honored if you would subscribe, and please feel free to like the video if you find it helpful. And as always, if anyone has something I can pray about for you, please leave a note in the comments below. Now, let's begin our forecast for this morning. The winter storm we have been discussing for the last couple of days is now moving out of our area and is affecting parts of Atlantic Canada. We do have some snow across areas of the Great Lakes region, which is part of a Clipper-style system bringing some lake-enhanced snowfall, with a great deal of cold air following right behind it. This is truly record-breaking cold air, and we will talk more about that toward the end of our video. There is a little bit of energy appearing over the middle of the country, but I am not certain if this precipitation is actually reaching the ground. Please let me know if you are in Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, or Iowa, and if you are seeing anything on the ground, whether it be light rain or some snow. We do have a bit of snow across South Dakota, and this snowfall is certainly reaching the ground in Colorado. This activity is part of the larger system that is on its way. We also have a bit of energy digging down into areas like Arizona. And I do believe some moisture will begin to enter the picture over the next 24 hours, particularly in areas like southeast Texas and Louisiana, as this system begins to draw in some moisture from the Gulf. It appears we have a significant rainfall event on the way once again for areas of the deep south states, which is much needed rain. But turning to current conditions, let's look at the watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have winter weather advisories in place across parts of Colorado and into the northern sections of New Mexico. We have winter storm warnings posted in the areas shaded in pink. Taking a closer look here, you can see we have some special weather statements issued across parts of the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. This is for, and it does mention, a bit of snow on the way over the next 24 hours, so we will review that here in just a moment. And I do want to mention this as well, and we will speak more on this as we go along. We have some special weather statements across areas of, well, even northern. It looks like that is mainly Ohio, parts of West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and also areas of Kentucky. We could get some light snow in some of these locations as we move through the next 24 hours or so. But for now, let's go over the latest, high-resolution rapid refresh model and the evolution of this first storm system across the southern and central plains over the next 48 hours. We will begin this timeline around late this morning. The timestamp is at the top of the screen, but please note this is in Eastern Time. So, if you are in the Central Time Zone, just subtract 1 hour. As we continue to move forward, the snow will really continue to fall across areas of Colorado and the northern areas of New Mexico. As we start to move into later this evening, around dinner time, you can see some moisture beginning to develop down here in Texas and Louisiana, with snow starting to fly around, perhaps in the far northwest corners of Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle. A little bit of light snow is also showing up in the western areas of Kansas. And then we continue to move this forward and, we start to get into tomorrow morning. And the model does show a little bit of snow. In fact, this particular model is quite aggressive, showing a band of heavy snow situated between Wichita Falls and Oklahoma City. It also shows some snow in Amarillo, and a significant rainfall developing down here in Louisiana and Mississippi. It even indicates a touch of winter weather north of Huntsville, between Nashville and Huntsville, Alabama. We will have to see if that actually happens, as that would be a little early if it does. Then we continue this all the way through about midday tomorrow. It shows a wintry mix, with the purple shades indicating sleet and the bluish shades representing snow, so it shows a bit of winter weather here in the southern half of Oklahoma. As we go to the end of this model run, well, we can take it to about Thursday night, which is tomorrow night. I could see a wintry mix developing across the central areas of Arkansas, and as we continue to move this forward and get all the way to the end of the model run, you can see this moisture beginning to interact with a bit more cold air as we start to get into Tennessee. So, you start to see some purple, indicating a sleet and rain mix, and perhaps even a little bit of snow in Nashville. We will have to see how this develops. And, this model only takes us out to about midnight tomorrow night, so we can switch our view and look at the North American model, or NAM. What does this one show? It shows the same thing, a snowstorm ongoing across areas of Colorado where those winter storm warnings are in effect. And as we continue to move forward, we take this into late tonight, with heavy snow developing across northern sections, particularly in some favored, higher elevated regions of New Mexico. Then some snow starts to fly around. It is even showing it to be quite heavy later tonight. This is around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning in the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. As we continue to progress this forward, and we get into tomorrow morning, some snow will likely be flying around across Amarillo, perhaps as far south as Lubbock, around Guymon, Oklahoma, maybe the Woodward area of Oklahoma, and a little bit of snow starting to move into Oklahoma City as we are moving into late tomorrow night. I am sorry, this is tomorrow afternoon, and, we continue to move forward. As we get into tomorrow evening, I could see a wintry mix happening between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So, it is a little bit different on the NAM model, but for the most part, the general idea is about the same. As we start to move into late tomorrow night, so this would be around midnight on Thursday night into Friday, and we get to about 1, 2, or 3 o'clock on Friday morning, you can see a touch of winter weather developing across the Bootheel of Missouri and starting to move into the western areas of Kentucky. So, we continue to go all the way through this model run, and it does show snow breaking out across these areas, but we will mention that here shortly. Let's focus on the southern plains for now. In Colorado, they have increased the snowfall forecast for these areas. Denver is now forecast for 5 inches, Castle Rock for 6, but it is already snowing in these locations. Now, please let me know if you are tuning in from this region. A decent snowstorm has certainly unfolded, and they have actually increased the snowfall totals, which I had a feeling they would. But in areas of New Mexico, the higher elevated regions will see their share. Santa Fe is going for around 1 inch, and they are even calling for 0.6 of an inch of snow in places like Clovis. Then we move up into Kansas. I could see a little bit of snow flying around here in Garden City and Dodge City, and in Liberal, maybe as far north as Colby. So, even though they are not forecasting any snowfall accumulations on the latest National Weather Service forecast, I could see a little bit occurring. I could certainly see someone in the area managing to get an inch or so of snow in parts of the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, and even though they are not forecasting any snow here in the southern areas of Oklahoma, if anything like what the high-resolution model unfolds, I believe we are going to get some light accumulations. I want to keep a close watch on the area from Elk City to Lawton, and perhaps just south of Oklahoma City. I think someone in that region could manage to see some light accumulations. If you look at the latest high-resolution model, it does show a band of a couple of inches. Now, I think this may be a bit overdone, but it even shows a touch of snow extending into the state of Arkansas. So, we will continue to watch this closely, and we will have another update on this for you tonight. But, moving forward, let's go over the latest information from the European model, and let's update this. I think we do have fresh data. We do. Yes. Wonderful. We have fresh information from the European model's morning run. So, we will start this off tomorrow evening, and you can see the rain developing down here. There is a lot of moisture for the Deep South and the Gulf states. Then, as we move forward, we take it until about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. If you lose me on the time frame, I know the text is quite small, especially if you are watching on a phone. Just look right here. If you are in Eastern Time, this is correct. If you are in Central Time, simply back it up by 1 hour. So, around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, you can see the snow starting to move into, areas of the eastern United States. Then, it looks to be heavy across areas of southwest Virginia and southern West Virginia. Look at that band of snow in Kentucky. We will take a closer look at this in a moment. I just want to take a broad look at everything first. It is all rain down in Charlotte. And I mean, it is a rather unpleasant rain and ice mix in a place like Asheville. It just appears that because of the position of this high pressure, and where the cold air is located at the surface, conditions look more favorable if you get away from the mountains, and farther to the north and to the east. So, it is not entirely but somewhat of an elevation-driven event, but it is mainly about where the source of cold air is, honestly. But it does show some winter weather breaking out across the northern areas of North Carolina, and this is around 10 o'clock in the morning. We keep this going, and it actually develops a band of heavy snow, I would say moderate or so, moderate to heavy snow, into the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore area. This even tries to get all the way up to New York City. Friday night, we have this thin area of freezing rain still ongoing across Virginia and northern North Carolina. This has shifted a little bit farther to the north and west, bringing more precipitation a little bit farther north. So, in the early morning hours, there is a little bit of snow in southern New England, and then this system heads on out. Okay, now for the American GFS model, what does it show? Here it comes. It is starting to become more aggressive now. So, it shows this finger of snow, if you will, breaking out across areas of the Triad and the foothills of North Carolina, into southwest Virginia. And, we continue to move this forward. And on Friday morning, we are waking up to just moderate to heavy snow across Winston-Salem, Hickory, goodness, it even shows it in Raleigh. Now, I think the GFS model is just a little off here with the snow, but I could see this trend becoming colder. That is the thing. There is a very large mass of cold air to the north, it really is. So the cold air could actually be more significant than what is being modeled. As we get into mid-morning on Friday, it is snowing in Raleigh. It is snowing in Danville and Roanoke. The snow is starting to move in, but it is just not as far north with the precipitation. So, there's not a whole lot that gets up to Washington, D.C., or New York City or anything like that. But I mean, take a look at this. This is 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. Look how heavy this snow appears. I mean, this darker shade of blue represents moderate to heavy snow. Now, let's take a closer look at North Carolina. Let us go ahead and switch our view to the 06Z model run. Here it is now, providing a closer look for everyone. You will need to locate your own area on the map to see how this affects you. While pivotal weather is not my preferred view due to the color scheme, it does an excellent job of showing town and city names. For our friends in Charlotte, this appears to be just a cold rain, unfortunately. However, I can certainly see a scenario where it begins as a wintry mix. I truly believe that is possible. As you look farther north, perhaps towards Statesville, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and even Raleigh, the model indicates a little bit of snow. And then you see the dark blue, which signifies a moderate pace of snowfall for Washington, D.C. Up here, it is possible this snow could then transition into a wintry mix, and the pink color you see represents freezing rain. So, it could be a burst of snow followed by a period of freezing rain. Now, while some may dismiss this as a minor event, by North Carolina and even Virginia standards, this has the potential to create rather difficult conditions. As we travel up the coastline into the mid-Atlantic for a closer inspection, every model shows a band of moderate snow reaching all the way into the Washington, D.C. corridor. The Tidewater region and the Delmarva Peninsula show some snow getting into Delaware, with some also back in West Virginia. Snow is also attempting to climb up into New Jersey, and you can see that pink color, indicating freezing rain, showing up around Richmond. As we continue, a band of snow moves all the way into Philadelphia as we head into Friday afternoon and evening, with snow beginning to arrive in the Washington, D.C. area. A little bit of snow is also appearing in the New York City area and Long Island. There is some snow trying to reach into Rhode Island and Connecticut before the system moves on out to sea. This is certainly an interesting storm. And what I find quite notable is this. Let us update the map to see if there is new information. No, there is not. The models are already forecasting this with some confidence. This is not just a few fluke model runs, my friends. Do you see this area right here? This represents the National Weather Service forecast. They are already predicting, for instance in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, a few tenths of an inch of snow. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, that does not sound like very much at all, and you would be correct. However, it is enough to give everything a light white coating. It makes for a very festive scene, considering it is early December. It is often difficult to see this even in the heart of winter in North Carolina. They are already forecasting 1 inch to 1.5 inches of snow around the Boone area, and showing a touch of snow perhaps down here in Asheville. You can also see the entire southern and southwest corridor of Virginia is forecast to receive anywhere from 0.5 inch to 1 inch of snow. This forecast extends all the way through Friday morning. They are being a bit more conservative up here in the Washington, D.C. area, calling for about 0.3 of an inch of snow. I will show you more areas of the mid-Atlantic as well. They are already predicting about 0.5 inch to a few tenths of an inch of snow. While I understand this is not a large amount, these totals could trend upward. This is a fairly assertive forecast right from the start by the National Weather Service. So, we already have a forecast for a touch of snow in these areas, from the experts, from the actual meteorologists themselves. But looking at the European ensemble model from overnight, I do not want to neglect our viewers in the Missouri Bootheel, Kentucky, and Tennessee. The model suggests there could be about, and please remember this is a blend of 51 different model members, so some members show absolutely nothing. Others might show 1 to 2 inches of snow for any given area on this screen. For Nashville, the average is about 0.5 inch. For Cookeville, 0.3 of an inch. For Johnson City, 0.5 inch to perhaps 1 inch. We must watch this area, the Tri-Cities region of Tennessee, very carefully. It could be a tricky forecast, but as you move into central and eastern Kentucky, once you get into this blue area, that is where over an inch of snow could fall. We will need to watch that closely, especially as we get deeper into Kentucky, and then as we start to move into North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. Hickory is showing 0.8 of an inch of snow. Now, this is a smoothed-out computer model average, not an official forecast. I believe right now the official forecast for Hickory is a few tenths of an inch of snow. Greensboro is close to an inch. Danville, 1.5 inches. Richmond, 1 inch to 2 inches of snow. Charlottesville, 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Roanoke, 1.5 inches of snow, and Washington, D.C., 1.5 inches of snow. So, this is not a major storm, but it is certainly a very festive event, and if this precipitation changes to ice in these areas, it could certainly bring more significant impacts. In fact, let us look at the potential for ice because I had not brought that up yet. Let us see what we can find here. This map shows the chances of seeing 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain from this event. You can see this pocket between Greensboro and Raleigh indicated by the color. That is where there is about a 50% chance of seeing 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain. So, for example, if Greensboro receives 1/2 inch of snow and then 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain, that would be a moderate event by Southern standards. That is certainly enough to create hazardous conditions on the roadways. And I do believe there are certain areas that will not get above freezing, particularly in Southwest Virginia. These are areas of northern and northwest North Carolina as well. You are looking at up to a 33% chance in Richmond and Danville, and a 30 to 40% chance of seeing 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain with all of this, with even a chance in Charlotte. So, as you head up the road into the Washington, D.C. corridor, the Delmarva, and the Tidewater regions, it appears 1 to 2 inches of snow is the common theme for these locations. We must watch this situation closely. It is definitely colder farther north, which is more favorable for snow. 1.5 inches is possible for Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. For Wilmington, nothing too significant. Now, this area you see here is related to a previous storm system that the model is still tracking, but the ensemble model does bring about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of snow all the way up into the southern sections of New England. It is forecasting just under 1 inch in New York City. That would be enough to make everything look quite nice and festive if this scenario plays out on Friday night and into Saturday. We will continue to monitor it. What is driving this system is essentially a moving source of cold air, and the timing of its arrival is quite good. Let us examine this a bit more closely. Do you see this 1030 millibar high-pressure system? It is moving in and then moving out, but as it moves into place, it funnels in some cold, dry air at the surface. At the same time, this area in blue, which is our low-pressure system, is moving moist air on top of that dry, cold air. When they meet, the moisture overrides the cold air, and we get what meteorologists call an overrunning event. This is also known as cold air damming. Now, this high pressure is not firmly locked in place. As we continue the animation, the high pressure moves away. That cold air is being held in place by a source over eastern Canada and the northeast. This is the same cold air source that will bring record-breaking cold temperatures across areas of the Midwest and the Northeast over the next couple of days. This will round out our work week. So, it is something of a fleeting cold air source, but it times up well with a little bit of moisture to the south. Moving past this system, there is another time frame I'm watching toward the end of the weekend. This is as we head into Sunday morning. The GFS model, which is being rather aggressive, is already showing some snow breaking out across Missouri. This includes the southern areas of Illinois. A viewer mentioned we hardly ever mention southern Illinois, so there you are. I wanted to acknowledge that. The GFS model shows some snow breaking out. Now, this is not a forecast, because the European model does not agree. It shows mostly rain. I believe it is simply going to be a soggy weekend across the southeast. As we start to move into Sunday night, the model shows some snow breaking out across northern Kentucky and West Virginia. It seems I keep mentioning these same states. A little bit of snow is trying to show up again back in Missouri and northern Arkansas. Then, a piece of energy dives in, and cold air collapses over this moisture as we get into Monday morning. This model wants to show a significant snowstorm, though it is not as strong as the overnight run. By the way, the overnight run of the GFS was unusually strong, and it wants to show snow breaking out across North Carolina. It even shows it across areas of northern South Carolina before it all heads out. I must express some skepticism about that particular outcome. As you know, I enjoy winter weather, but my primary goal is to provide you with a realistic and honest assessment. If you look at the latest European model, we see that as we get into Sunday morning, there is a little bit of moisture lingering. However, there is not enough cold air in place. Then, as we look at that next time frame, the European model does show energy. You can see it right here in the form of snow across the Midwest. There is some energy over the mountains, with just enough cold air for the higher elevations to see some snow. The lower elevations will see rain. We have a large area of low pressure off the coast of the southeast, but nothing is combining in the way the GFS model is showing. The GFS model has a tendency to be a bit over-enthusiastic with energy that drops down from the northern Rockies. Now, could it trend towards something like what the GFS is showing? Absolutely. The energy is in place. There is certainly enough energy in the atmosphere to be squeezed out in the mountains in the form of higher elevation snow. I think it is just going to be a wintry weekend up in those areas. As we move past this time frame, we can only go out 144 hours on the European model. Of course, the GFS ensemble will tend to follow its main operational run. This is for the system we just analyzed for this Friday and Saturday. You can see that disappear. This is shown in 24-hour periods. You can also see how the GFS model detects that next storm system right here, with a footprint of snow showing up and diving down to North Carolina. One thing to note is that the ensemble from the GFS almost always follows its main operational run. So, if you get an extreme forecast from the main model, the GFS will typically be supported by its ensemble average. That does not necessarily make it correct, as we prefer to look at a consensus among all models, but it is a consistent behavior of this particular model. So there is a signal from the GFS ensemble, but for now, I am not convinced of this outcome, and I want to be transparent with you about that. Now, does the European ensemble model support this at all? Here's the forecast for Friday and Saturday, which shows a fairly clear signal. As we move past that and get into Monday morning and Monday night, there is a touch of snow showing up and dipping south, but it is blended in with many other possibilities. It definitely shows some snow for the mountains. But, in general, I do not see anything that strongly corroborates that more extreme scenario. So yes, I have seen the very aggressive GFS model run for North Carolina, especially the one from last night, which produced a foot of snow over the state. However, I am simply not convinced of that outcome at this time. That does not mean it cannot happen, but it is not what I am expecting. So, what might be in store after all of that? Let's look deeper into next week, around this same time. Next week. Let's take a look at what the coming week has in store for us. As we look ahead to Monday evening, a clear pattern begins to emerge with an active northern stream. The key question is whether it will draw upon any energy from the southern stream. As I advance the forecast map, you will notice areas of blue and green appearing up north. So, let us continue forward. By next Wednesday, you can see a clipper system moving through the Great Lakes region. However, at the very end of this model run, you can observe that 540 millibar line diving deep. This is an operational run. For your information, an entire lobe of Arctic air is projected down into the central and eastern United States. Of course, this could produce some significant weather, as it shows snow developing across areas of the mountains. The models indicate a great deal of northwest flow activity accompanying this trough across the Ohio Valley. This would be for next Thursday evening. If a scenario like this were to unfold, it would deliver a fresh shot of Arctic air and additional energy from that northern stream. For now, we are not seeing any signs of a massive storm system. It is a pattern where the existing cold tends to reinforce itself, but that could certainly change. And the GFS model now also shows a large trough descending late next week. I believe this is an adjustment based on what we are seeing with the MJO progression. That is why I expect the models will continue to trend colder. It is the same story here, with a piece of northern stream energy. We see a potent-looking clipper system on the GFS across the Great Lakes region, followed by another one. As we get to about this time next week, that is a 987 millibar clipper, which is quite strong and would bring some heavy snow to whichever areas it impacts. Then, a shot of cold air follows. We also see some snow across the Appalachian Mountains, and then this area of snow moving southward. This is an interesting development. The trough is deepening, and moderate snow is beginning to break out across the plains. I happen to be taking a trip to the mountains next weekend, so I am certainly hoping for some interesting weather to develop in the Gatlinburg, North Carolina, and Tennessee mountain area. This forecast takes us into Friday morning, and it does show a large trough moving south, with some snow across the central Appalachians. Then that cold air gently spreads down to the south. This is quite similar to what the European model is showing, which is a large trough moving southward. Anytime you see that first blue line, which is the 540 millibar line, drop this far south, you know a shot of cold air is on the way. This is also supported by the Euro ensemble model. This large area of bluish, greenish yellow is the energy we are watching for early next week. The European ensemble model does not develop it as strongly as the GFS model does. After that, the pattern favors a great deal of activity to the north. We will have to see if it taps into anything farther south. This is the northern energy, making for an active northern stream pattern. We are going to get numerous clipper systems moving down, regardless of whether they connect with anything to the south. One thing I am noticing on the latest European ensemble is this area, about a week from today, is projected to dive a little bit deeper compared to the information I shared in last night's video. You can see how the energy is forecast to move farther south into the eastern United States. That is an interesting trend because if that happens, it increases the chances of tapping into some of that southern stream energy. However, this still looks to be a pattern dominated by the northern stream, but that does not mean we cannot have decent snow events a little farther to the south. I am not referring to places like Birmingham, Alabama, or Atlanta, Georgia, but it is a situation we must watch closely. There is a small but noticeable trend for this energy to dig more. This is because we are seeing more of a trend of a trough digging deeper, and you can see it right here. The blue on the map represents that trough, which is an area of lower pressure. Energy is always associated with it. The warmer colors, the yellows and oranges, indicate higher pressure, which is a ridge strengthening across the western United States. This begins on the morning of Monday, the 8th, and you can see a trough anchored over the eastern United States. This will bring reinforcing shots of cold air and the energy associated with it. Then the trough reasserts itself, if you will, and continues to dig down. So energy will continue to flow down and around the base of this trough. Now, if you notice this area in white embedded in the blue, if you want this energy to truly dig and tap into something more substantial for winter weather, this is what needs to happen. We have the cold air in place. You need this area to dig farther south into here. For that to happen, you need this ridge to build higher to the north. A stronger ridge would allow this trough to dig deeper right into this area, so a system could move through. Regardless, this trough does bring energy. It is just in the form of northern stream clippers and northwest flow events, but that can change. And I want to keep emphasizing that point. This trough continues to remain with us. It does show a ridge at the end of the forecast period, but I am not 100% convinced of that. In fact, we have seen continued shifts from run to run. Let's look at the 0Z run. If you look here, as we get to next week, you can see how the blue appears. That indicates a trend towards lower pressure, more troughing, and colder air. And we are already trending in that direction. Once again, the model guidance is adjusting to more troughing over the central and eastern United States. What this does is it pushes that western ridge farther back in time. I think there is a chance it may not even happen. And the GFS model, as you know, shows the very same thing, a similar looking pattern. I do not know if we can go out as far on the 6C run. It shows this trough over the eastern United States. There is the signal for that trough strengthening as we are getting towards the end of next week. How far south does it dig? Either way, that is going to be a shot of cold air across the eastern United States. And it does show the ridge at the end. I am just not certain I believe it. So, regardless, as I have already shown you, this pattern is going to continue to bring reinforcing shots of cold air. The main question is the potential for winter weather, is it not? And that is always the challenge. Once you have the cold air in place, you then have to figure out the moisture. The temperatures are normally the first piece of the puzzle to solve. But as we get into next week, you see the blues and the greens. Then you get into this purplish color right here. That indicates temperatures that are 20, 25, even 30 degrees below average. We will continue to deal with shots of cold air. As we get into next Wednesday, you might get a moderation of temperatures for Wednesday or Thursday. And then another shot of cold air arrives next weekend. It just stays cold almost through the entirety of the forecast run. It does show a ridge trying to build at the end, but I am not confident in that. Now, I will tell you why I am not confident. I do not want to just say that without providing an explanation. If you look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, this is for the 8th through the 12th of December, and it points toward below average temperatures in the east and above average temperatures in the west. When we go to the 8 to 14 day outlook, from the 10th through the 16th, it still says the same for the eastern United States. And it does have some above average temperatures moving into the southern tier of the country. But the reason I am skeptical of this ridge that keeps appearing at the end of the runs, and why I think we will continue to see adjustments toward colder air, is this tool right here. Let us see if we have a new update. Let me refresh the browser. I always want to try to get you the freshest information. Sometimes I catch the new update, and sometimes I do not. I believe it is a little too early in any case. I just want to look at this, which goes all the way out to the 16th. This is the MJO forecast. Let us explain this again. If you look, this is the MJO chart. Pardon me. This is phase 6, phase 5, and phase 4. These are considered warm phases. So if we are in these phases, most of the lower 48 is going to deal with warm air. This does not mean you cannot get shots of cold air or winter weather. In fact, we did in November when we were in Phase 5 and 6. Now, Phase 8, Phase 1 and Phase 2 are the colder phases. Phase 3 and Phase 7 are what I like to call transitional phases. Where are we, and where are we heading? Well, today is December the 3rd. Yesterday was the 2nd, and tomorrow is the 4th. So technically we are right about here, which means we are probably in Phase 8 right now. It might be the first full day or two that we are in Phase 8. Phase 8, the one I have just circled, is the most favorable phase for winter weather, for fans of cold weather in the central and eastern United States. So, we are getting into that phase. I remember it seems like only yesterday we were discussing this, and we were way over here, saying we needed to get into Phase 8. A lot of times, these charts can shift on us, and we end up trending towards unfavorable phases. But no, we have made it, and it shows us remaining in Phase 8 for the next couple of weeks. This gives the atmosphere time to respond. Now, there is a chance we get into this center circle, which represents a low-amplitude version of whatever phase we are in. This simply means we would have a lower impact or a weaker response. There would not be much of a response from the weather, depending on the phase you are in. So if we were in Phase 6 but close to the center, you might not get the full impacts of what Phase 6 normally brings. It is the same thing with Phase 8, but it shows us in a slightly low-amplitude phase of Phase 8, and if we drift into Phase 1 and 2, these are also favorable phases as well. So, I truly believe the model guidance is struggling to adjust to the fact that we are moving fully into a very favorable MJO pulse and phase. Now, I do not pretend to be an extreme expert on this. I know enough about it to understand that this is a great tool to help forecast long-range patterns. It has a lot to do with thunderstorm activity out in the Pacific. Perhaps I can put a link in the description with more detailed explanations of the MJO. When I present these weather videos, I focus on what I am most comfortable discussing. There was a time, say 3 or 4 years ago, where I was not as comfortable talking about a trough or a ridge and what it means for the weather at the surface. I have since become comfortable with that. So this is something that I will gradually learn more and more about. I know which phases we need to be in to increase our chances for cold and winter weather. But this does get into the more technical side of meteorology, it really does. As for today's weather, the southeast looks quite quiet. It is going to be cold, as our cooler start to December continues for many of you, of moisture that is building up here in the south. In fact, we could awaken to some thunderstorms along the southeastern coastline of Louisiana. The northeast will have a quiet, but very cold day. Then, later this evening, we are expecting some snow to move in across New England, which will bring a light amount of accumulation. I believe tomorrow could be a very festive day across the northeast, with some light snow gently drifting around. We have already discussed the south-central United States, but we will be waking up to some snow across the Great Lakes region. Lake effect snow will become active again across the upper peninsula of Michigan and lower Michigan, and I anticipate that a band of light snow will develop. It is even possible that this could happen right here in Missouri. Even though it is not appearing on this particular forecast model, it will likely be ongoing for Missouri, areas of Illinois, and certainly for Indiana and Ohio. You can see it indicated at the bottom of your screen. When we awaken tomorrow morning, you can expect to see some snow in the southern areas of Ohio, extending into northern parts of West Virginia and northern Kentucky. I do believe this is quite likely. In fact, the forecast mentions some light snowfall accumulations. We are looking at perhaps 1/8 to 8/10 of an inch in Indianapolis, and just a touch of snow in Cincinnati and Dayton. So we are certainly seeing more snow, which contributes to the totals in these areas. As I mentioned yesterday, and again this morning, it truly feels like a good old-fashioned winter, folks. It really does feel like a good old-fashioned winter in some of these locations. And heading north into lower Michigan, this is the forecast for the next 48 hours, which indicates more snow is on the way. The same is true for the upper peninsula of Michigan. More snow is expected there as well. I also want to mention the dangerously low temperatures for tomorrow morning. These temperatures could be record-breaking for certain areas, with forecasts calling for 16 degrees below zero in parts of Iowa. Please understand this is not a computer model projection. This is the official forecast low temperature from the National Weather Service. These are truly severe conditions for early December, rather than the middle of January. Please look at these low temperatures forecast for tomorrow morning across the upper Midwest. Now, let us look ahead to Friday morning. I am afraid conditions will not be much better. There will be a pocket of sub-zero temperatures across the northern half of Illinois, with single digits elsewhere. This cold is a direct result of the very deep snowpack on the ground. Regarding conditions out west, we have already discussed the snow moving across the Rockies and down into the southern plains. If you happen to miss that, you can find it at the beginning of the video. Another weather system is moving into the Pacific Northwest. As for temperatures, it will be a chilly day across the southeast and cold throughout the eastern United States. The only area escaping the cold is central and southern Florida. Deep Arctic air is moving into the northern sections of the country, and these are the conditions out west. That concludes my report. Thank you for tuning in, and may God bless you all. I hope you have a wonderful and safe day. I will speak with you again this evening.